I used to believe that loyalty, real, unconditional loyalty, meant something. I believed it when I was 8, and my father made me promise we'd always be a team. I believed it at 12 when he told me no matter who came into his life, I would always be his first priority. And I still believed it at 16, the day he introduced me to Angela and her 2 perfect children. Looking back, I shouldn't have believed him for that long. My name is Melissa, and this is the story of the day my father stopped being a parent, and the moment 5 years later when he demanded I become one. When my mom died unexpectedly, my father and I were all we had. We grieved together, cooked together, learned how to navigate life without her together. But something changed when he met Angela. It wasn't immediate, but it was steady, like a tide pulling him farther and farther away. At first, she was kind, too kind. The sort of kindness where every smile felt rehearsed and every compliment came wrapped in a thin layer of condescension. Her children, Ethan and Lily, were polite, soft-spoken, and painfully photogenic, the kind of family you'd see on a holiday card. I didn't fit into that picture. Still, I tried. I really did. I laughed at jokes I didn't understand. I helped with chores that weren't mine. I stepped aside when my dad wanted family photos. But every time I looked at the framed pictures lining our living room wall, I couldn't ignore it. I was the only one missing. A hook here. I should have known the final blow was coming long before it landed. By the time I turned 18, things were tense. Angela complained that I didn't blend well. Her kids needed stability. My father needed peace. And apparently, I didn't fit into any of those categories. But nothing prepared me for the conversation on the night of my 18th birthday. I came home from my part-time job to find my dad and Angela sitting in the living room, their posture rigid, their expressions strangely formal. I remember thinking it looked like an intervention scene in a movie. "Melissa," my dad began, avoiding my eyes, "we think it's time you start living independently." "Independently?" I repeated. "Dad, I'm still in high school." Angela jumped in before he could respond. "You're 18 now, legally an adult, and we need space. The kids need their own rooms. Our finances are tight." Tight? My father worked full-time as a senior IT analyst. Angela was a nurse practitioner. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't struggling. Still, my dad nodded. "It's for the best. You'll be fine. Kids your age move out all the time." He said, "Kids, not you." That should have hurt less than it did. I remember asking, "Where am I supposed to go?" He sighed. This long, irritated sigh like I had inconvenienced him. "You'll figure it out. You turned out fine without much help anyway. You're strong, independent, you'll manage." A line that would come back to haunt him. I packed my things that night, a lifetime in 2 duffel bags. As I walked out the door, I hesitated, waiting, hoping for him to stop me, to say this was all a mistake, to say he still wanted me. But he only said, "Lock the door behind you." My aunt took me in, not because my father asked her to, but because she heard what happened from a neighbor and drove to my school in tears. She bought me groceries when I couldn't afford them, helped me apply for scholarships, and sat through every panic attack I had during my first year of college. She became the family I lost. Meanwhile, my father never called, never texted, never checked if I survived the nights I was down to $14 in my bank account. He never asked if I graduated, or if I found a job, or if I still carried the stuffed bear he gave me on my 5th birthday. He didn't ask because he didn't care. And for 5 years, I convinced myself I didn't care either. A tension hook here, but then he showed up at my door, unannounced, looking older, thinner, and far more desperate than I remembered, and I realized he hadn't come for me. He came for my money. When I opened the door that morning, still half asleep and sipping coffee, he didn't even say hello. He scanned my apartment, the furniture I bought, the degree framed on the wall, and he smiled like he had built this life for me. "You turned out fine," he said, "just like I knew you would." Then came the sentence that shifted everything. "Now it's time you help your real siblings." The word real hit like a slap. He wanted me to pay for Ethan and Lily's college tuition. He wanted me, the daughter he discarded, to save the children he replaced me with. What he didn't expect was the faint red light glowing above my front door. My security system had recorded everything. And the next day, well, let's just say he learned exactly what being independent truly means. When my father demanded I help my real siblings, something inside me went very still. Not angry, not sad, just still. Like my body had gone quiet so my mind could decide whether to laugh or scream. I didn't do either. Instead, I stepped aside and let him in. Not because I wanted him there, but because I wanted to understand what kind of man could throw his daughter out at 18, ignore her for 5 years, and then show up acting entitled to her success. He walked around my apartment like a detective scanning a crime scene. The furniture, the framed diploma, the bookshelves, even the rug. He touched everything, nodding approvingly as if he'd had any part in it. Angela wasn't with him, which immediately told me 2 things. 1. They were having problems. 2. He needed to appear reasonable without her commentary. "Melissa," he began, trying to sound fatherly, "your siblings are at a turning point in their lives. College is expensive, and your stepmother and I are drowning. You make a good salary now. We know that. We. Meaning, Angela knows. Angela probably sent him." I took a slow breath. "How did you even find my address?" His eyes flicked away. "A hook here." That was the moment I knew this visit wasn't spontaneous. "I still have contacts," he said. "Besides, I'm your father. You should have come to us first when things got better for you." That sentence almost made me laugh. Better for me? I had clawed my way into stability with no guidance, no emotional support, and no safety net. "So," I said calmly, "you think I should pay for Ethan and Lily because they're your real family," he repeated. "As their sister, you should feel responsible. You left when they were young." "I left?" I interrupted. "You kicked me out." He waved his hand as though brushing away a minor inconvenience. "You were an adult, Melissa, 18. Most kids your age move out anyway, and you turned out fine. You should be grateful for that freedom. Look where it got you." Grateful. That word tasted bitter. I watched him walk toward my kitchen, opening cabinets like he owned the place. "How much are you contributing?" he asked. "We're not asking for everything, just enough to get us through the next few years." Enough? Considering college tuition, enough meant tens of thousands. He kept talking, pacing, gesturing with his hands like this was some kind of business negotiation. But then he made a mistake. A big one. He said, "You owe this to us. After everything we gave you growing up, it's time you give back." I froze. Everything they gave me? A roof they threw me out of? A childhood I spent trying to earn affection that never came? 5 years of silence? I stepped toward him. "What exactly do you think you gave me?" He blinked at me as if confused by the question. "I fed you. I clothed you. I kept a roof over your head for 18 years. "No," I corrected. "Mom did, until she died. And after that, you did the bare minimum until I became inconvenient. Then you replaced me." He scoffed. "You're being dramatic." Somewhere behind me, near the entryway, a tiny red light continued to blink. My security system was still recording. "Let me make this simple," I said. "I'm not paying for their college." His entire expression changed, like a mask slipping. The calmness evaporated, replaced by something sharp and entitled. "You ungrateful child," he snapped. "Do you know how hard this has been on us? Do you think you're better than your siblings? You got lucky in life, Melissa. Lucky. And now you're refusing to help the family who raised you?" "You didn't raise me," I said quietly. "You tolerated me until you had something better." He slammed his hand on the counter so hard a spoon rattled in the sink. "I am your father," he said through clenched teeth. "And you will not speak to me like that. You will help, one way or another." That was when I knew I needed him to leave. "Get out," I said. "No," he barked. "Not until we settle this. I'm not discussing this anymore. Leave." He stepped toward me, towering, trying to intimidate me like he used to when I was younger, but I wasn't afraid anymore. "If you don't leave," I said, "I'll call the police." For a moment, he froze, calculating. Then, with a final glare, he stormed toward the door. But just before leaving, he pointed at me and said, "You'll regret this. When your siblings fail, that will be on you." The door slammed. Silence followed. A hook here. But the real story didn't start until I replayed the footage my security camera had captured. Every demand, every threat, every word he should never have said out loud. And the next morning, someone else saw that footage too. Someone who never expected to be involved at all. After my father stormed out, the apartment felt unnervingly quiet. I stood in the middle of my living room, replaying every word he said. Not because I doubted myself. God knows I'd replayed that night 5 years ago enough times to know exactly what happened, but because something about his visit felt unfinished. He hadn't come to ask. He had come to claim. And deep down, I knew he wasn't going to let this go. I sat on the couch, opened my laptop, and pulled up the security footage. The angle captured everything. His tone, his body language, his entitlement, the threats he thought he had the right to make. But watching it wasn't what rattled me. What rattled me was how familiar it felt. The raised voice, the superiority, the subtle suggestion that I owed him something simply because he existed. It was like being 18 again, standing in the doorway with my bags packed, wondering how a father could so casually discard a child. A hook here, but this time I had proof. Proof he didn't expect me to have. The next morning, I went to work, still shaken, but functional. My job wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, and I had achieved more than I ever thought possible when I was sleeping on my aunt's couch and working 2 part-time jobs just to stay afloat. I wasn't at my desk for more than 30 minutes when my manager, Rowan, walked over with a puzzled expression. "Melissa, someone dropped off an envelope for you downstairs." My stomach tightened. Who? They didn't give a name, but the receptionist said he looked upset. Upset. That told me everything I needed to know. I thanked Rowan and walked downstairs, but the receptionist only handed me the envelope, no sign of him. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one handwritten line. "We need to talk again. Stop being difficult. Dad." No greeting. No apology. Just entitlement. I folded the paper and put it away. He wasn't getting another conversation out of me, not without boundaries, and certainly not without distance. Still, the tension in my chest refused to leave. Something told me he wasn't done. During lunch, I opened my email. Buried between work messages was one from an address I didn't recognize, but the subject line made my breath catch. I saw the footage. It was from my aunt. I hadn't sent her anything. Someone else must have. Before panic set in, I opened it. "Melissa, your father came to our house last night. He was furious. He said you refused to help with your siblings and that you were being selfish." Angela was crying in the car. "He said you had the means to help but chose to abandon the family. When he left, I called you, but your phone was off. I texted you too. When you didn't answer, I reached out to Rowan. Yes, I know I shouldn't have, but I was worried, and he said he saw you at work. Then this morning, someone anonymously forwarded me video footage. I don't know who, maybe a neighbor or a security notification. But I saw everything. Every word he said to you. Every threat. Every manipulation. Sweetheart, I am so sorry. He lied to us all these years. Please call me when you can. Aunt Marie." I exhaled slowly. Someone, likely my home security cloud backup, had automatically sent a safety alert to my emergency contacts. I'd set it up years ago and forgotten about it. My aunt wasn't meant to see that footage, but maybe it was the shock she needed. She had always tried to maintain peace within the family, even when it meant comforting people who didn't deserve her loyalty. Now, she had seen the truth. A hook here. And she wasn't the only one. Because at 3:17 p.m., an email arrived from an address I never wanted to see again. Angela. I hesitated before opening it. "Melissa, I need to speak with you. I saw the video your father took from your house." That made me blink. He took? Had he copied it somehow? Why? To manipulate the narrative? To twist it? I read on. "He showed it to me last night, insisting it made him look reasonable. I disagree. I'm not defending him. But please understand, we are drowning. The kids' tuition is due soon, and he is terrified. Not just for them, but for himself. I'm not asking you to pay. I know that isn't fair. I just need to talk to you, away from him. Please. Just once. Angela." I leaned back in my chair. This was unraveling fast. My father wasn't just demanding money, he was actively reframing the story, trying to control the narrative, pulling in everyone around him to pressure me. But he didn't expect that the footage he tried to use to justify himself would end up exposing him. And he definitely didn't expect the consequences that arrived the next day. Consequences that neither of us could have anticipated. Angela's email sat open on my screen for a long time. I read it once, twice, 3 times. She wanted to talk away from him. Why? Guilt? Regret? Or another attempt to pull me into their financial disaster? I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I wasn't ready to expose myself again. Not after the emotional ambush from my father the day before. Instead, I went home early from work, needing silence to process everything. But fate didn't care about my timing. When I turned onto my street, I saw a familiar car parked near my building. My father's car. My pulse quickened. I considered driving past, pretending I hadn't seen him, but he stepped out just as I slowed down. He blocked the driveway, forcing me to stop. He looked different, angrier, more frantic, like he hadn't slept. A hook here, and in that moment, I knew his desperation hadn't peaked yet. It was about to. I rolled the window down halfway. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "We're talking," he snapped. "You ignored my message." "That doesn't mean you can just show up wherever you want." He scoffed. "I'm your father. I don't need permission." I parked the car because I could already tell he wouldn't move unless I did. When I got out, he marched toward me. "You made me look like a monster," he said. "You twisted everything." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "That video," he barked. "You sent it to your aunt. Now she's lecturing me about responsibility and boundaries like I'm some kind of failure." "I didn't send her anything," I said. "My security system automatically." He cut me off. "I know you did it on purpose. You're trying to turn everyone against me." I stared at him, stunned by how far removed from reality he had become. "I didn't send anything," I repeated calmly. "But maybe you should ask yourself why the footage makes you look bad." He stepped closer, lowering his voice into that intimidating tone he used when I was a child. "You're being dramatic. All I asked was for you to support your family. That's what decent people do." "No," I said. "You asked me to pay for the children you replaced me with. There's a difference." His face twisted. "God, Melissa, you're so ungrateful. After everything we did for you." "You kicked me out," I reminded him. He shook his head. "That's irrelevant now. You're an adult. You have money. Your siblings need help. Be mature for once." Mature. He really said that. I took a breath, trying to stay composed, but he kept talking, words spilling out faster than his brain could filter them. "If you don't pay," he said, "the twins won't get into college, and you'll be responsible for ruining their future." I stared at him. "You can't put that on me. Their education is your responsibility, not mine. You made choices. Now you're dealing with the consequences." His jaw clenched. "That's your final answer?" "Yes." He exhaled sharply, almost shaking with rage. "You're heartless." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally done being used." I walked toward my door, hoping he would take the hint. But he followed. When we reached the front steps, he grabbed my arm, not hard enough to bruise, but tight enough to send a clear message. "We're not done," he hissed. The shock made me freeze. "Let go of me," I said firmly. He didn't. "Listen to me," he insisted. "You aren't better than us. You got lucky, that's it, and now you're refusing to help the people who raised you. That's cold, Melissa, really cold." I pulled my arm back. "You didn't raise me. You abandoned me." He opened his mouth, but something behind me caught his attention. The small camera above my doorframe. The light blinking. Recording. Again. His expression faltered, just for a second, but enough to show he understood. "You're recording this?" he asked. "I don't control when it records," I replied. "It activates when motion is detected." He stepped back, suddenly aware of how he must look on camera. For a moment, he seemed to struggle between fury and fear. "You think this will save you?" he muttered. "Fine, keep your money, but don't come crying to us when you're alone in life." He turned sharply and walked away, slamming his car door so hard it echoed down the street. I locked myself inside my apartment, heart pounding, unsure if I wanted to scream or cry. A hook here. But the real surprise came the next morning, when someone else, someone I never expected, asked to see the footage. And what they revealed changed everything I believed about my family. The morning after my father grabbed my arm at my door, I woke up to 3 missed calls and a voicemail from an unknown number. At first, I ignored it. I assumed it was him again, or Angela, or someone else trying to guilt-trip me into giving money I didn't owe. But then my phone buzzed again, this time a text. "Melissa, it's Ethan, please call me, it's important." My chest tightened. My half-brother. One of the real siblings my father said I had a duty to help. One of the children he replaced me with. We hadn't spoken in 5 years. The last time I saw him, he was barely 13, standing behind Angela at the top of the stairs as my father told me to pack my things and go. My instinct was to ignore him. But something about the message felt different. Less entitled, less rehearsed, almost scared. I called him back. He picked up on the first ring. "Melissa?" His voice cracked. "Thank God, I didn't think you'd call." "What's going on?" I asked cautiously. I need to talk to you. And please don't tell Dad." That sentence alone was enough to make me sit down. "All right," I said. "Talk." He hesitated. I saw the footage. My stomach dropped. "How?" I asked. "Dad showed it to us. He said it proved you were being disrespectful and selfish. But, Melissa, that's not what I saw." My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear him. "What did you see?" I whispered. "I saw him yelling at you. I saw him threatening you. I saw him tell you that you owed us money because he raised you. And that's not what happened." He was breathing hard, like he had been carrying this weight alone for a while. "He told us you abandoned the family," he continued, "that you left because you didn't want to be around us anymore. He said he offered to help pay for your college and you refused." I closed my eyes. Of course he rewrote history. It was easier for him to lie than admit he tossed his daughter out like old furniture. "Ethan," I said softly, "none of that is true." "I know," he said immediately. "I didn't at first, but after seeing the video, and after hearing him scream at Mom last night, things don't add up." I stiffened. "Scream at her? Why? What happened?" A deep silence filled the line. "He thinks she sent the footage to your aunt," he said quietly. "He accused her of betraying him, of ruining his relationship with his parents, of turning the family against him. He said she should have kept you under control when you lived with us." The familiar chill of childhood resentment crawled up my spine. "And then?" I asked. "He threw something, a lamp, I think." Lily started crying. Mom locked herself in the bedroom. He said. Ethan paused, voice shaking. He said she was to blame for everything falling apart. I exhaled sharply. This wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was instability. Loss of control. "Ethan, are you and Lily safe?" "We're at Mom's sister's house," he said. "We left this morning. I don't think we're going back." My heart ached in a way I didn't expect. Those 2 kids, the ones I resented for years simply because they symbolized my replacement, were suddenly human again, vulnerable, confused, victims of the same man who had shaped so many years of my life. "Why did you contact me?" I asked. "Because I needed the truth," he said. "And because we need help. Not money, just help." I listened silently as he continued. "Mom wants a separation, maybe a divorce, but Dad is furious. He's blaming you for everything. He said he's coming back to your place today to get what he's owed." My skin prickled. "He was coming back?" "He can't just show up," I said. "I told him not to." "He doesn't care," Ethan said. "He's not thinking clearly. He said you humiliated him, that you made him look abusive." "He made himself look abusive," I corrected. "I know that," Ethan said. "But Melissa, I'm worried he might do something stupid." I stood from the couch. "Ethan, thank you for telling me," I said. "I'm going to handle this. But you and Lily stay where you are. Do not go home." "Okay," he whispered. "And, Melissa?" "Yes?" "I'm sorry," he said, "for not knowing, for not understanding what really happened to you. I was a kid, but I'm old enough now to see things clearly. My throat tightened. Thank you, I said softly. That means more than you know. We hung up. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger toward Ethan or Lily. I felt fear. For them, for myself, for what my father had become. A hook here. And as if the universe wanted to confirm everything Ethan said, there was a loud knock at my door. Not gentle. Not hesitant. A forceful, demanding knock. He had come back. And this time, the footage recorded more than words. It recorded every second of what would finally force my father to face the consequences he had outrun for years. The pounding on my door grew louder, shaking the frame. He was here, just like Ethan warned. I swallowed hard, stepped back, and glanced at the small blinking red light on my security camera. It was already recording. Every second, every sound. I tightened my grip on my phone, ready to call the police before opening the door. But I didn't get the chance. My father shouted from the hallway, loud enough for neighbors to hear. Melissa, open this door right now. There was no way I was opening it. Not after everything. Not with the rage Ethan described still burning through his voice. I'm calling the police, I said through the door. Leave. His tone shifted instantly, from rage to mocking disbelief. You're going to call the police on your own father? After everything I've done for you? Pathetic. A hook here. Even then, he thought fear would make me obedient. But fear wasn't something he controlled anymore. I'm dialing, I warned. Leave now. Instead of leaving, he kicked the door. Hard. The entire hallway echoed with the sound. Neighbors opened their doors. I could hear whispers, footsteps, the faint ring of someone else already calling emergency services. Open this door, he roared again. You owe me. You owe this family. I backed away as the door shook under his weight. Then I heard a voice from down the hall. Sir, step away from her door. One of my neighbors, an older man from across the hall, stood with his phone raised, filming. My father turned on him. This has nothing to do with you. Stay out of it. It does if you're threatening her, my neighbor said firmly. The tension snapped like a pulled wire. My father lunged. Not at me. At my neighbor. That was the moment I hit call on the emergency number. The dispatcher answered just as shouting erupted outside. He's attacking someone, I told her. Send police now. My father shoved the neighbor against the wall, yelling, Mind your own business, you don't know anything. Other doors opened. More witnesses. More phones recording. He suddenly realized the weight of what he'd done. He backed up, panting, wild-eyed, as neighbors formed a loose circle around him. Then he looked straight into my camera. You think this will save you? He spat. You think you're better than us? You're the problem. You ruined this family. I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Moments later, police officers rushed into the hallway. Sir, step away from the door. He didn't move. I'm talking to my daughter, he snapped. You can talk to her later, the officer said. Hands behind your back, now. He raised his hands, but not in surrender, more like defiance. You can't arrest me. I didn't do anything. The officer pointed to the cracked door frame, to the neighbor rubbing his shoulder, to the row of cameras, mine and every neighbor's phone held steady in the air. You did enough, the officer said. He resisted. Not dramatically, but enough to escalate things. Within seconds, they had him restrained, handcuffed, and escorted down the stairs. The hallway grew quiet. Someone asked if I was okay. Someone else touched my shoulder gently. Another neighbor, eyes wide, said, You did the right thing. I wasn't sure I believed them yet. Later that evening, I sat with the police in my living room as they collected statements. I provided my footage. Several neighbors emailed theirs. It was overwhelming, but for the first time in years, I felt safe. Ethan called shortly after. I heard, he said quietly. Mom told me. Are you okay? I will be, I answered. Melissa. His voice broke. I'm sorry it took this long for me to see who he really is. You were a kid, I said. None of this is on you. He exhaled shakily. We're not going back to him, he said. Mom's filing for a restraining order too. And, if it's okay, we'd like to stay in touch. Not because he told us to, because we want to. A knot in my chest loosened. I'd like that, I said. The charges against my father moved quickly. Assault, attempted forced entry, harassment, violation of private property. I filed my own restraining order, and it was granted. So was Angela's. He tried to contact me one last time through an email sent by his attorney, claiming he had acted out of frustration and never meant harm. But remorse that only appears after consequences isn't remorse. It's self-preservation. I didn't respond. Months later, things finally settled. Angela divorced him. Ethan and Lily received counseling and slowly began building their own futures, ones not built on guilt or manipulation. As for me, I moved into a bigger place, a safer one where the locks were changed, the neighbors were kind, and the past couldn't reach me. And I realized something important. Family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by behavior. The people who show up, the people who protect you, the people who choose you, not because they want something from you, but because they care. My father never chose me, but I chose myself, and that choice saved my life.